I'm a mom. My son is 2. So 30 minutes in the car by myself is kind of a vacation.
Understandable.
I'm like, oh no, and I need to budget time to drive by myself.
That's awesome. What's his name? Chase. My brother.
Classic.
It is.
They just tag it.
They won't come up here.
Oh yeah, I feel like if my mom was singing in something and I wasn't, I would sit with her.
No, you are. So you're a teacher?
Oh, former teacher.
Okay.
I former classroom teacher.
Oh wow. What grade did you teach?
I taught music, but like from in school.
Cool.
I thought I overheard that. Are you teaching class?
I was just teaching at Arlington Homes this year.
Okay.
School of Akron, but I really invited there outside of the kids is awesome. So
Nice.
but I have been teaching. It was my 7th year teaching
Oh wow.
music K through 5. So
Yeah, I did. So I got, obviously, music's K-12 certification. I like prepared for secondary choir in Colorado and then got a K3 general job here. So I like kind of learned how to do that on the fly. Did that for 2 years. Then I worked for a charter network and I got transferred to the 4-6 school. And I like learned all that. And that was terrible. I had a really bad year that year. For a lot of reasons. And then that was when COVID hit. So we weren't in school for the last,
oh no, no.
and before COVID, I was like, I'm leaving this job whether or not I get another teaching job immediately.
Yeah.
And so I left that one and I did not, I applied, but I didn't get any other classroom teaching jobs. And now that I'm not doing it, I'm like, I feel so bad.
I know. I need a I need a break.
Yeah.
And I don't have an education degree. I have a performance degree.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is so wonderful to be with all of you on this very, very special Shabbat. We want to give a warm welcome to everyone in our community, and we want to give a warm welcome to our teens who are here for their shulin this evening. Shalom, teens. Shalom. That was beautiful. And we want to give a very warm welcome to our cast from the Sparks Fly Upward, which is airing in just a few days, featuring our very own Cantor Kathy Sebo.
It's actually featuring about 34 people, but
Yes.
I'm among 34. Thank you, though, Rabbi.
That's what I meant. Thank you for helping with that. And of course, tonight is a very special Shabbat in that we celebrate pride. We celebrate members of our community, our LGBTQ brothers and sisters in our community and in the world. And we celebrate the right to love who we want and express love freely. And I'd like to begin our service with a short reading. Listen to me when I say, I'm beautiful in my own way, because God makes no mistakes. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Don't hide yourself in regret. Just love yourself, and you're set. Don't be a drag, just be a queen. Whether you're broke or evergreen, you're black, white, beige, you're Lebanese. Whether life's disabilities left you outcast, bullied, or teased, rejoice and love yourself today. Because baby, you were born this way. No matter gay, straight, or bi, lesbian, transgender life, I'm on the right track, baby. I was born to be brave. I'm beautiful in my way because God makes no mistakes. Same DNA, but born this way. The Lady Gaga. We begin our service with being blessed to be here together. Hine Matov, please chant and sing along with us.
הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. 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 How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. How good it is, הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleikum. Hine מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבת אחים גם יחד. שבת אחים גם יחד. שבת אחים גם יחד. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
As we continue to welcome Shabbat, I'd like to invite Dina and Brandon Rock to please light the candles.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us find knowledge by which we live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their heart. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Amen.
Let us light these lights for the world tonight. Let our hearts unite in the light, in the light. Baruch Asher Kiddushanu B'mitzvotav v'tivanu
We continue our service on page 20 with Lecha Dodi. Tonight we will be doing verses 1, 2, and 9. And as we approach verse 9, I will ask you, if you are able, to please rise and face the doorway, the entrance, as we welcome our symbolic Shabbat bride and watch her come into our prayer space.
Ya la 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 lecha dodi, ya la 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 likvat hala, ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela, ya la 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 lecha dodi, ya la 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 likvat hala, ya la 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamo וזכור בדיבור אחד kala. Ya la 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 la, b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat, לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם ניסוחה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תהילה. Ya la 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 lekrat גדולים, ya la 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 לקראת כלה, ya la 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 בני שבת, בני שבת נקרא, ya la 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 lekrat גדולים, ya la 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 לקראת כלה, ya la 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 בני שבת, בני שבת נקרא.
I invite you to please rise if you are able.
בואי ושלום, עצרת בעלה, גם בשמחה וצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, יאי לי לי, יא לה 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 לי לקראת דודי, יא לה 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 לי לקראת כלה, יא לה 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 לי בני שבת, בני שבת נקרא, יא לה 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 לקראת דודי, יא לה 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 לקראת כלה, יא לה 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 בני שבת, בני שבת נקרא.
We remain standing for the Baruch Hu. Page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMivorach, Baruch Adonai HaMivorach, Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
You may be seated. We continue now on page 32. And before we read this paragraph together, I want to make a comment or two about it. This is one of the centerpieces of the service. And I'm going to try to illustrate this. Ahavat olam, with eternal love, you have loved your people. And it ends with the Chatimah, the signature, Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael, who loves our people Israel. If we turn the page to page 34, we have the Shema. And if we turn the page again on page 36, we have the V'ahavta, the very same word, love. On page 32, God loves us, not just with an emotion, but with gifts, with Torah, mitzvot, laws, precepts, which, as the paragraph goes on, lengthens our days. I'd like to say deepens our days. When we turn to the V'ahavta, it is we who are loving God. What we have, therefore, is, in brief, the covenant. God has loved us and given us gifts. In response, we love God back by performing the mitzvot among ourselves and creating community. What lies between the Shema, the idea of unity, the unity of God, but the idea of unity itself? We use the word universe casually, as if we know exactly what it means. But the opposite of universe is a multiverse. Universe suggests that the universe is a unity. But unity is not just a description, it's an aspiration. When we say the Shema, when we proclaim the idea of unity, we are aspiring to make, in ethical, moral terms, the mirror of the physical unity of the universe. And so what we have is kind of an arch picture. God loves us. We acknowledge our aspiration to bring unity into the world. And we love God. In little, in miniature, this is the covenant. Let's read together the paragraph on page 32. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws, your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night will we reflect on them. And doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Amecha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadita, Otanu limadita. Alakein Adonai Eloheinu b'shofeinu, u'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, u'lachem nageyomam v'layla, nageyomam v'layla.
Please rise for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
We read together. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. You may be seated. We continue together with the chanting of the Via Hafta, found on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לעוד על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot oseh feleh, nora tehilot oseh feleh. Ya la la, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Mi chamocha, who is like you, Adonai? Nora tehilot, who is like you, Nora tehilot, oseh feleh.
In a moment, we continue with the Amidah. And as we turn to pages 46 and 48, and I invite you to rise, I also invite you to think about our fathers and mothers, and about the spiritual fathers and mothers who have given us Torah on this Shabbat of Shavuot, on this Shabbat of Matan Torah, where we receive the Torah. And among the fathers and mothers, I want to recognize one mother in particular, who's not a mother, but who's a spiritual mother, and that is Rabbi Sally Prizan, whose 50th anniversary of her ordination, the very first woman rabbi ordained here in our Reform movement and for us, is this Shabbat. And so, as we think about our fathers and mothers, please rise and join us for the Amidah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'konei hakol, v'zocher chasdevut v'imahot, u'mevi geula livnei v'nehem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרא שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחייך כל אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד אתה, מחלקי חיים בחסד, מחייך כל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
Please be seated and turn with me to page 61, and we're going to read at the bottom of the page. לא יישא גוי אל גוי חרב ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה. Nation shall not take up sword against nation. They shall never again know war. And please read with me. Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and making musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first.
Someday I wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops,
Shalom Rab Israel Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rab Israel Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim. If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh why can't I? Shalom Rab al Yisrael Amaha, Tasim Leolam.
We pray silently. How special, how beautiful. This is from The Sparks Fly Upward. This is not only our Oseh Shalom, but our Oseh Shalom combined with a priestly blessing. What a magnificent way to conclude our silent prayer. Thank you Thank you so much. We turn to Seder Kriyat Torah. I invite you to join with me and turn to page 244. There is none like you among the gods, Adonai, and there are no deeds like yours. You are sovereign over all worlds, and your dominion is in all generations. Adonai reigns, Adonai has reigned. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Adonai will give strength to our people. Adonai will bless our people with peace. Please rise.
Ein כמוך ואלוהים אדוני בין כמעשיך מלכותך מלכות כל עמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני Adonai יברך את עמו בשלום, אבהר רחמים, איתי ירצונך בציון. תבני חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות
In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני בירושלים, ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש שמו. גדלו לאדוני איתי ונרוממה שמו יחדיו. לך אדוני הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח וכבוד. כי בו בשמיים ובארץ, כי בו בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו לך קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו לך קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר Adonai Eloheinu Ramu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu leha'kadosha. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu leha'kadosha. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu leha'kadosha. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu leha'kadosha.
You may be seated. What a beautiful hakafa. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. Huzzah. A few nights ago, I overheard my husband Joe speaking to our son Micha. Spider-Man's uncle always told him that with great power comes great responsibility. To be clear, this is a first century adage that has been used in many other places like Marvel movies. Micha, who is now 3 years old, has recently encountered comic book superheroes and has been particularly curious about Spider-Man and Batman. And it has been wonderful to receive so many questions, and comic book characters lend themselves to narrative about family dynamic and the struggle with implementing a certain set of values. Micha's face was somewhat perplexed when Joe said, with great power comes great responsibility, and wanted a follow-up explanation. Frankly, I wanted a follow-up explanation. And while my 3-year-old struggled with what that means, I too wondered what that means in our world today. And while I was very touched by this lovely interaction on so many levels, it made me pause for a moment and realize how we've missed the mark on taking responsibility for the greater good in many ways. Like many of you, I have been struck by recent incidences in our world. The racist hate crimes in Buffalo, New York, yet another school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. The painful blow that Roe v. Wade is being overturned, the backdrop of the ongoing war in Ukraine, and so much more. All of these things have taken a toll on our souls and hearts, and worse, the unnecessary death of so many. How can all of these things be happening in our world at the same time? We send thoughts and prayers to those in pain, which may temporarily relieve the ache of the wounded, only to hold us over until the next painful incident. We have the wonderful opportunity to celebrate our LGBTQ community in the month of June, who have also gone through unnecessary mistreatment, and many of these struggles still remain for our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. Gay pride has a relatively short history in that it dates back no longer than 4 decades. It was first established in the 1970s, marking the first anniversary of the Stonewall riots. These riots were a result of a police raid on the Stonewall Inn on June 27, 1970. The Stonewall Inn was a gay bar on Christopher Street in downtown New York, where the owner, employees, and many other LGBTQ customers were arrested. And this was not the first raid of a gay bar by any means, but it was the first time the community finally pushed back. And in the years since, we try to right the wrong the LGBTQ community has experienced by removing the otherness that has long been attached. So what do we do with all of these painful occurrences that seem to continuously build up? I turn to Torah for a moment. Tonight we begin the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, meaning in the desert. And it's an interesting book in that it lacks the grand familial narrative of Genesis, the theological importance of Exodus, the judicial authority of Leviticus, or the summation of Deuteronomy. Numbers holds the conclusion of the priestly history of Israel from creation to the death of Moses, though we read about Moses' death in Deuteronomy. Numbers is our itinerary from slavery in Egypt to the Promised Land. And it is not just a geographical journey, but more importantly, a spiritual and a societal one. Moses and Joshua are tasked with leading a new generation of Israelites through the desert and must ask, what kind of society will they build to cross the wilderness and reach said promised land? How will this civilization account for their past? What is their image or story they will share of themselves in the future? And how will it affect those after them? And this is the question I glean from this week's Torah portion and ask it about our present. A few weeks ago, I stood here asking the question, who are you? And I suggested that rather than answering the question by naming what we do for a living, we forge more deeply and answer the question by conveying the values we hold and how we shape the world we live in. And this evening, I want to push us even further and ask, how do we want to remember this time in our history? How will the next generation, our children, our grandchildren, look at this time? What are we doing to shape this time in their future in hopes of creating a strong foundation for them? When we see all the hatred in the world around us, we are obligated to take action. And our fight for the marginalized must be a priority, because we are witnessing violence on innocent human beings, on children. Our tradition drives us to do justice, mercy, and have compassion for all. And it calls upon us to fight for basic rights and dignity for all people. In the month of June, the month of Pride, it calls on us, who are not necessarily LGBTQ, to come out as allies. And I want to argue that this obligation begins in our homes. The fight for injustice begins and ends with understanding. With our families, with our friends, with people we hold near and dear, and sometimes feel uncomfortable to speak about subjects where we disagree. I've heard countless stories about families breaking up because of political or social disagreements. And rather than creating safe spaces at home and learning to have difficult dialogue, we sometimes shy away from these moments as to avoid any kind of conflict, because conflict feels intimidating and sometimes daunting. But the alternative, as we are seeing today, leads to ignorance and in turn violence. And I'd like to share a moment with you that happened in our congregation. I recently sat with a group of teens to talk about the sporting event with Lake Catholic. A boy had a swastika drawn on his leg, and some students noticed it during the sporting event. And when I spoke to our students about the aftermath of this occurrence, I was astonished to learn that this was not the first incident, and that many of their sporting games, a place where teams are supposed to practice good integrity, are often very difficult to get through. because racial signs and slurs are thrown around towards multiple minority groups on an ongoing basis. And moreover, when I asked the teens how their friends from school responded to these events, knowing that they were Jewish, I was really disappointed to hear that a majority of the kids didn't have a place to unpack this and other incidents like it. Our students are left to deal with these issues on their own. And when I asked if they would have wanted to hear something from their friends or get a comforting text or have a conversation about the anti-Semitism with their friends or at school, our teens said they were somewhat numb to these occurrences and have gotten used to it. Friends, I'm worried. I'm worried that we are raising a generation of apathetic young people who are becoming accustomed to witnessing hatred towards themselves and others, and this cannot be. It is dangerous for all minorities. It is dangerous for Jews, straight, gay, black, all people. Our preliminary job at this time is to create safe places for people to share their feelings and thoughts about the world around them so that they feel heard. And this is not trite or a cliche. When people allow unresolved matters to fester, it can lead to aggression. And through these kinds of conversations, we create opportunities for acceptance and understanding. We must not steer away from dialogue because it's hard. Because silence generated by disagreement leads to assumptions about the other and further distances people. Without self-expression and discussion, we will continue to witness the increase of bullying, ostracizing, and violence. We must find and create the spaces to affirm ourselves and others in order to push bigotry out. Tomorrow night, as Rabbi Cohen mentioned, is the holiday of Shavuot, where we rejoice in accepting our Torah. And our Torah is not just writing on parchment or a story we read each week, but a responsibility. Each and every one of us have a great responsibility to each other and to our world. And I truly hope that this Shavuot will inspire continued works of goodness for a more peaceful future. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. At this time, we turn to Torah and read words of Torah. I will be reading the first few verses from the book of Numbers, where we encounter the Israelites 13 months after the Exodus from Egypt. And these opening verses help us prepare to take the census taken of the Israelites, who were given significance and responsibility to each household. I sure am. I was so inside my own message that I didn't make an aliyah. My teens, my friends, can I please ask you, our future, our hope, our inspiration, no pressure, to chant the blessing before Torah, please. Thank you. Baruch Adonai Hamorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. No, don't go. Don't go. Don't go. Okay, Rue, you hold this side. Okay. Don't drop it. Okay. You hold this side. Don't drop it.
I won't drop it.
You drop it, you buy it.
Oh,
And you can't afford it. וידבר אדוני אל משה במדבר סיני באוהל מועד, באחד לחודש השני בשנה השנית לצאתם מארץ מצרים לאמור, שאו את ראש כל עדת בני ישראל למשפחותם, לבית אבותם, במספר שמות כל זכר לגבולותם, מבין עשריה שני ומעלה, כל יצאי צבא בישראל. תפקדו אותם לצוואתם, אתה ואהרון ואתכם. יהיו איש איש למטה, איש ראש לבית אבותם. הוא ואלה שמות האנשים אשר יעמדו איתכם.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. The verses we just read were on the first day of the second month in the second year following the exodus from the land of Egypt. Adonai spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting, saying, take a census of the whole Israelite company or congregation by the clans of its ancestral houses or tribes, listing the names, every male head by head. You and Aaron shall record, you, meaning Moses and Aaron, shall record them by their groups from the age of 20 years and up. All those in Israel who are able to bear arms, be a participant from each tribe, each one the head of their ancestral house.
We pause now, as we always do at this point in our service, to take into our hearts those members of our families and circle of friends who are ailing at this point, of body, of mind, of spirit. I'm going to read the list that I have, and then I'm going to invite you to mention the names of those about whom you are thinking. Mary Jane Daniel Brown, Uni Curtis, Oliver Edging, Joseph Golden, Amelia Hegarty, Maddie Jefferson, Byron Krantz, Dr. Anna Majerovich, Morel Semabas Ruchel, Richard Moore, Betty Pickless, Bob Shippey. As my hand passes over your section of the congregation, feel free to mention out loud or in your heart silently those about whom you are thinking at this point.
Kenneth Good and Alice Mack.
Rachel,
Carrie and Daphne Hammerhand.
Lori Cahan, Simon Basrith Kalea.
Bob Weissman.
Let's continue with the singing together of the Mishaberach. You can find it on page 253.
Bless the ones before us.
Now I invite you to rise as we celebrate the presence of Torah in our people's midst.
Bizonta Torah asher sa Moshe b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la
Continuing now on page 256, Yahalalu et Shem Adonai ki niskav shemo levado. Let us praise the name of Adonai, for God's name alone is exalted.
Hodo alaretz shamayim vayarem keren le'amam tihila lichol chasidav livnei Yisrael angerovo Hallelujah 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 Hallelujah.
For I have given you good instruction, do not abandon my Torah. It is a tree of life for those who hold fast to it, and all its supporters are happy. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Return us to you, Adonai, and we will return. Renew our days as
Eitz chaim mehi lamachzikim v'tomchecha meushar derachecha darchei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yomeinu Chadesh Yomeinu ki kedem.
You may be seated. We continue now on page 290 as we prepare for the reading of the Mourner's Kaddish. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We think especially of those members of our congregational family whom we lost during this past week: Jeffrey Friedman, Nancy Rose Sternheimer Friedman, Adele Gold, Victoria Ganger, David Resnick. And we also remember those who were laid to rest during the past 30 days: Edna Ray Brown, Elsie Gaury, Ida Rose Luntz, Esther Misney, Ann Derry, Richard Dick Felber, James Jimmy R. Goldberg, Edward J. Pershey, Mark B. Price, DDS, Kevin Mark Weiss, Susan T. Diener, Evie Rosen Morris. And we also take into our hearts those members of our congregational family whose yahrzeits occur at this time: Alfred F. Baum, Beatrice Beckerman, David Blum, Sylvia B. Epstein, Mayor M. Epstein, Farron Penny Schwartz Feigenbaum, Harriet M. Feldman, Clara Fellinger, Stanley Fox, Libby S. Friedman, Nancy Levine Friedman, Anna Gimp, Bessie S. Gimp, Kate S. Goldstein, Eileen Green, Nedward N. Gross, Fanny Hyam, Dr. Morris I. Heller, Francie I. Hoffman, William Hoffman Sr., Jacob Israel, Barbara Noel Jacobs, Irvin Donald Jacobson, Morley Lebby, Margot Luntz, Leonora H. Moreau, Charles Moss, Edward M. Newman, Max M. Ozer, Sophia Peveroff, Harriet A. Polk, Hattie D. Rich, Esther Saganor, Sarah N. Sampliner, Anna Scher, Jack M. Schneider, Arnold D. Shapiro, Hattie F. Shapiro, Alfred B. Stoddard, Minnie Weiss, Lena Wiesenberg, Ralph Wiesenberger, Ruben Wolkoff, Adolph Wollaston, Jeanette Jasper, Rebecca Zide. If anyone at this point would like to make mention of a loved one or a friend whose yahrzeit or near yahrzeit you are observing, please feel free to mention their names now.
Sarah Bennett, Gloria Goldstein.
And now I'm going to invite those who are observing the Shiva period, the first 7 days after the death of a loved one, if you wish to please rise. Those who are observing the Shloshim period, the first 30 days after a death of a loved one, please rise. And those who are observing the yahrzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one, please rise. And now, as a caring congregation, we all rise and together sanctify the name of our God with the words of the Kaddish found in our prayer books on page 294. As we say together, Yit Gadal v'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah v'Alma Divrach Hirutei v'Yamlich Malchutei b'Chayechon of Yomeichon v'Chayedechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agalav Izman Kari v'Yamru Amen Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Elmaya Yit Barach v'Yishtabach v'Yit Pa'ar v'Yit Romam v'Yit Naseh v'Yit Hadar v'Yit Alei v'Yit Halal Shmei D'Kudashah Barichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata v'Shirata Tushbechata v'Nechemata Da'amiram B'Alma v'Yamru Amen Yehei Shalom Rabbah Min Shemaya v'Chayim Aleinu v'Al Kol Yisrael v'Yamru Amen Oseh Shalom B'Mromab Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu v'Al Kol Yisrael v'Yamru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, and let us say together, Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated.
It has become our custom here to move from these moments of the Kaddish to moments of recognition and celebration to those Shehecheyanu moments. And we want to celebrate a few things this week. First of all, as our teens know, I think majority of our teens now are done with their finals. They're done with, no, not completely, not everybody, no, okay, so for those who are not yet, next week, but many of us, many of our teens are done with finals, and some are even done with school, and so to all of those teens who are done with finals and done with schools, Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov to you, wonderful, and enjoy this completion of a year wherein we did manage to be together. We did manage to learn together, face to face, in classrooms, though we mostly wore masks, but at least we were in the classrooms together. So that's number one. Second, I'd like to offer a special Shechianu moment, a special Mazel Tov to our Rabbi Rick Block and Susie Block, who celebrated an anniversary this week. And I believe that they're now in Italy. But I just want to say what a wonderful moment that is, and that we think of Rabbi Block and Susie and wish them many, many more happy years to come. So congratulations, Mazel Tov, to our Rabbi Rick Block and Susie Block on this special occasion. And I want to wish a special good luck and a special blessing of Yishar Koach to Kathy Lesser-Mansfield and to the entire team of the Sparks Fly Upward as we prepare for the special opera event that's going to occur just in
Since
days.
you brought it up, Rabbi,
Yes.
I'll just add and tell you and everyone who's here and everyone who's watching at home, live streaming, that what you see and what you've heard tonight is 50% of the cast, approximately. There's about 35 people in the cast, and we're also going to be joining with a 36-person orchestra in the Maltz Performing Arts Center in our beautiful Silver Sanctuary. The performances are Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evening next week, and also a Sunday matinee. So if you would like to come and hear this incredibly powerful story of love and hope and courage, Kathy Lesser-Mansfield has worked on this just for the past 3 decades of her life, or 2 decades. Her brother, Jeff Lesser, who's with us tonight, is the director, and we have a very, very special group. Feel free to call the Maltz Performing Arts Center's box office if you wish to join us. We would so love to have you in the audience, and I want to thank them as well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday evening, your Shabbat, whether you celebrate Shabbat regularly or not. We're so glad. We have some people, I think, who are here for their first Jewish service, and we hope that it was a good experience for you.
And so as we all think about our Shechianu moments, I'm going to invite you to think about those special moments and think about birthdays, think about anniversaries, think about those special moments as we join together in the Shechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
And now to bless our bounty and to sanctify the moment with a Kiddush. Blaze, may I ask you to join me up here, to help me out?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hadafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodesho b'yamav v'ratzon
Inchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit
ki hu yom
tefillah lemikrai kodesh sefer l'tziat mitzrayim ki aru b'charta v'yonanu kidashta mikorim v'shabbat kodeshecha v'yamav v'ratzon hinechatanu Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh hashat. Amen. L'chaim.
No good? Okay. It's a good year.
Okay.
Baruch atah Adonai
אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
Amen.
בתיאבון. Adonai oz la'amo iten. Oh, not yet.
Yet. It's okay.
Yes?
Yes,
Yes. Yet. Adonai oz la'amo iten. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. May we on this Shabbat enjoy a moment of Matan Torah, of the giving of Torah, enjoy a moment of appreciation of our journey within Torah, and appreciate our need to take responsibility. May we take responsibility through respectful and deep conversation. May we take responsibility through dialogue. And may we take responsibility in a way that will diminish hatred in our world and bring about peace. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה אז יבואו כבר כולם. אמרו את זה קודם לפניי, זה לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם. אני ואתה ננסה מההתחלה. יהיה לנו רע, אין גאווה, זה לא נורא. אמרו את זה קודם לפניי, זה לא משנה. אני ואתה נשנה את העולם.
Shabbat Shalom.